For over a decade, a serial killer was haunting Long Island, leaving his victims along this desolate stretch of beach. The case just went completely cold, totally mired in mystery and, frankly, incompetence. But here's the crazy part. The whole time, the killer was hiding in plain sight. This is a story that's just as much about the monster as it is about the system that completely failed to stop him. Can you even imagine that? Knowing, or at least having this gut feeling that you'd shared a meal with one of the most notorious unidentified killers in the country? This one quote, man, it just captures the terrifying reality of this whole case. The monster wasn't some phantom lurking in the shadows. He was a neighbor, a professional, a family man. 13 years. Just let that sink in for a second. That's how long this nightmare went on, from the first victim's disappearance all the way to an arrest. For 13 years, families were just waiting, hoping for answers, while a predator was walking free. And in that time, the grim discoveries just kept mounting. 11 sets of human remains, turning a quiet stretch of Ocean Parkway into what can only be described as an infamous dumping ground. So this is the big question, right? How did this happen? It wasn't just about a clever killer, it was about a deeply, deeply flawed investigation. So we're going to break down how the search for just one missing woman accidentally exposed this absolute nightmare, how police failures let the killer roam free for years, and believe it or not, how a single piece of trash finally cracked the entire case wide open. Every story has a beginning, right? And this one, well, it starts not with the discovery of a body, but with a desperate, frantic plea for help that just went unanswered. So on this foggy May morning, a young woman named Shannan Gilbert, who was working as an escort, made this absolutely terrifying 23-minute 911 call from a client's house. I mean, you can practically feel the panic in the transcript as she fled into the marshy darkness near Oak Beach. The search for Shannan would end up uncovering something far, far more sinister. So 7 months into the search for Shannan, a police officer and his canine made a gruesome discovery. But it wasn't Shannan, it was Melissa Barthelemy. And then, just 2 days later, bam, 3 more bodies. They became known as the Gilgo 4. By the next spring, the body count had climbed to a staggering 11. The search for one missing person had accidentally revealed a serial killer's graveyard. Okay, so they know they have a serial killer on their hands. Why on earth did the case go cold for over a decade? Well, the answer is just as disturbing as the crimes themselves. It was a botched investigation, completely crippled from the inside. This right here, this crystallizes the entire failure. In 2010, right after the Gilgo 4 were found, a witness gave police this phenomenal tip. A description of a client of one of the victims, a massive guy like an ogre who drove a very specific truck. All the police had to do was run a search for that make and model in the area. They didn't. For 12 years, that crucial lead just sat in a file, totally ignored. And let's be really clear, this wasn't just some simple mistake or a clue falling through the cracks. The investigation was, for all intents and purposes, actively sabotaged. It was paralyzed by this culture of corruption that went all the way to the top of the Suffolk County Police Department. And right at the center of all this was Police Chief James Burke. Now, he reportedly had his own history with sex workers and had a pretty clear reason for keeping a massive investigation into their murders out of the spotlight. He famously refused help from the FBI, keeping their superior resources, we're talking criminal profilers, national databases, decades of expertise, at bay for years. And isn't it telling that both he and the DA at the time, Tom Spoda, eventually ended up in prison for corruption? They weren't just incompetent, they were compromised. So years pass, the case gets colder and colder. But then, a change in leadership finally brings the breakthrough everyone was waiting for. It took fresh eyes, a new commitment to actually working together, and, well, one tiny mistake from the killer. In 2022, a new police commissioner comes in and does what should have been done a decade earlier. He forms a dedicated task force, including the very same FBI agents that Burke had shut out, and they decide to start from square one, re-examining every single clue they had. The path to the arrest was just a masterclass in basic police work that had been ignored for years. First, they finally picked up that 12-year-old ogre tip. Then they ran the vehicle search. That pointed them straight to Rex Heuermann, an architect who lived in the area and matched the physical description. To get his DNA without tipping him off, they followed him in Manhattan and simply picked up a pizza box he threw in a public trash can. The DNA from that leftover crust, a direct match to a hair found on one of the victims. And just like that, a 13-year mystery completely unraveled. The arrest sent absolute shockwaves through the community. The man they charged wasn't some drifter or an outcast. He was a successful professional living a seemingly normal life in the suburbs. I mean, the contrast is just staggering. On one hand, you've got Rex Heuermann, the Manhattan architect, married for decades with 2 kids. And on the other, you have the man investigators allege was making these cruel, taunting phone calls to victims' families, searching for sadistic torture porn online, and hoarding a personal arsenal of nearly 300 guns in his basement. It's the classic Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde scenario come to life. And get this. This is the detail that really gets under your skin. Heuermann allegedly conducted over 200 searches online about the Gilgo Beach case. He was compulsively Googling his own alleged crimes, tracking the investigation, searching for pictures of the victims and their families. It's a level of narcissistic obsession that is just truly, truly terrifying. Now, as this case moves forward, it is important to note that Rex Heuermann has pleaded not guilty to the murders he's been charged with, and he is, of course, presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But the arrest doesn't end the story, not by a long shot. In fact, it opens up a whole new, horrifying set of questions. Investigators know Heuermann had properties in other states, like Las Vegas and South Carolina, and that raises a chilling possibility. Did those 13 years of a botched investigation allow a killer to claim even more victims, far, far beyond the sands of Gilgo Beach? That is the question that's going to haunt this case for years to come.